till I see what this could be eternity or just a week. Our chemistry is off the chain, it's perfect now, but will it change? This ain't a yes, this ain't a no, just do your thing, we'll see how it goes. If the person don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. You can dust it off and try again, try again. If the person don't succeed, you can dust it off and try again. Dust yourself off and try again, try again. You don't wanna throw it all away. I might be shy on the first day. What about the next day? I said you don't wanna throw it all away. You're bugging on the first day. What about the next day? If at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. You can dust it off and try again, try again. Cause if at first you don't succeed, you can dust it off and try again. Dust yourself off and try again, try again, again. And if at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. You can dust it off and try again, try again. If at first you don't succeed, you can dust it off and try again. Dust yourself off and try again, try again. If at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. You can dust it off and try again, try again. Cause if at first you don't succeed, baby, you can dust it off and try again. Dust yourself off and try again, try again, again.
We should have left you without a dope beat. Step two, step two, step two, step two, step two, step two. It's been a long time. We should have left you without a dope beat. Step two, step two, step two, step two, step two, step two.
First you don't succeed, then dust yourself off and try again. You can dust it off and try again, try again. Cause if at first you don't succeed, you can dust it off and try again. Dust yourself off and try again, try again, again.
It's been a long time. We should have left you without a dope beat. Step two, step two, step two, step two, step, 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 step two. It's been a long time. We shouldn't have left you without a dope beat. Step two, step two, step, step, step two, step, step two, step two. We are. One more year. The new millennium, baby.
This is 99.5 Global FM, your number one source for R&B in the Bahamas.
Yeah. Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and guests and not necessarily the opinions of the owners of Global Communications Network and the operators.
Today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madera Street. Accessories provided by Chevette Williamson Jewelry. Standout jewelry for standout women.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. I am your host, Michelle Malcolm, and as always, it's a pleasure to be in your company today. Thank you so much for tuning in on this Wellness Wednesday. I decided to do something today that I guess is kind of personal, considering what my family and I are facing right now. For those of you who may not have heard, my father passed away on Monday, and it has been very, very tough. It's interesting, no matter what kind of relationship you have with your parents, no matter how much you think you're prepared for something, let me tell you, if you have experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. The death of a parent is very, very, very hard. In the case of my mother had been sick for a very long time. And so, you think you're prepared for it, even though when it does happen, you realize how little prepared you are. But in the case of my father, he was not sick for a very long time. And so, we're expecting this to happen. And it did. And like I said, no matter how much you think you are prepared or how much whatever kind of relationship you had with a parent, if you had a relationship with your parent, you're going to feel it. And when it comes to grief, feeling it is more than just, as we're going to learn during the show today, an emotional thing, or feeling it is more than just what's going on, in your mind or whatever. But there are physical ramifications of grief. Grief actually affects us just as much physically as it does mentally or emotionally. So today we're going to be talking about the anatomy of grief. Because, and a lot of people right now are going through this. We've seen a lot of people just pass away suddenly in recent weeks and months. And so you are probably feeling some of what we're going to be talking about today, and may not be aware of why you're going through what you're going through. But as we're going to learn on the show, it's not just a person's passing that could give you a reason to grieve. It is any kind of loss that could lead to grief and the physical implications thereof. And so this is what we're going to be talking about today, the anatomy of grief. The telephone numbers to call are 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272, and the WhatsApp line for text messages only is 8010271, 8010271. So let's begin the show by defining what is grief. Exactly what is grief? What does it look like? What does it feel like? How does it affect a person? And so we're going to go to clip number one. Clip number one, what is grief?
Grief is something used to describe how you feel after someone close to you has died. Grief affects us all in different ways. Imagine your life as a circle. This is what might happen when someone close to you has died and grief hits you. You could be overwhelmed with emotions, feeling like grief has taken over. You could be thinking about it in the morning, at night, or anywhere you go. Whilst this grief will never get smaller, over time you may grow around that grief by gaining different experiences, new memories, and growing older. Your grief may never shrink, but the circle around it grows. Grief will always be there. You'll never forget about the person that died. But you can learn to live around it. Sometimes this grief will be triggered, like on anniversaries. Sometimes it feels like no one around you understands why you feel like you do. Grief is different for all of us. But this is one way that could help you understand grief. Some days it will take over your whole life, but over time, you'll learn to grow around it.
This is so true, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, we have a caller on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, you're on the air. Hello, you're on the air.
Yes, good afternoon. My thing about grief is that.
Ma'am, I'm not sure what's happening with your phone, but you're breaking up. Can you turn down whatever you're listening to us on, please?
Hello.
Yes, you're on the air.
You know why we take grief so hard? Because it is final. That's the big word, final.
Okay.
Right? Because they're not going to be back around anymore. And it final is such a hard word. It's unbelievable. That's why we take it so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not. I've been through it, and one of my closest directors just died here last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I could feel it. It comes right back to me as though it was my husband who died 6 years ago.
Right.
So I know it's final. That it isn't so much the death, it's so final.
Right.
Think about it, final.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you so much for calling.
You're welcome.
The thing is, the reason why, as we're going to learn during the show, it continues to go on because, like it was said in that clip, you don't just forget somebody, or you don't just forget a marriage that has ended, or whatever the loss is that you experience in your life. It doesn't just disappear. Just because a relationship has ended or just because a life has ended doesn't mean that the memories that you shared have ended as well. It's something that you will grieve because it was a significant part of your life, especially if you're talking about someone as significant in your life as a parent or a child. So grieving is a very natural part of life. It's as natural as death is, as a normal part of life. So is grieving, because, like I said, you don't just forget that you had that relationship. You don't just forget that that person would have played that important role in your life. And the clip is right in that you can continue to grieve long after the person has gone. Many things can trigger you. I know in the case of my mom, like I said, my mother was sick for a long time, and she had dementia. And I was watching a television program the other night, and there was a scene where the major character also developed dementia. And there was a particular scene in that show that took me back to what happened with my mother. And it triggered me. I had a breakdown. A mini one, but I had a breakdown because it took me back to all of the suffering that my mother experienced. And I just remembered everything like it was yesterday. My mother died in 2009. So I say that to say that it's not unusual for you to continue to grieve for that person long after they're gone. And we're going to hear in the show the various aspects of what grief is and how it affects us physically. We're going to learn all of that during the show today. So, like I said at the beginning of the show, we have to realize that it's not just an emotional thing. It's actually a physical reaction that your body goes through, literally. And we're going to learn on the show today how it impacts your brain, your heart, and other functions of the body as well. But more importantly, we're going to learn what you can do about it. You don't have to suffer alone. You don't have to go through this feeling that there's no help or no support in your life. You can definitely do something about it. And we're going to talk about all of that. So let's go to clip number 2, which talks about the physical impact of grief on one's life. That's clip number 2.
Okay, so first, let's talk about how grief shows up in the brain. When you first hear of an intense loss, your brain essentially perceives it as a threat to your survival, and the amygdala triggers the stress response, also known as the fight, flight, freeze response. Loss is an intense stress. People may fight, they may scream, yell, or get furious that someone is gone. They may flee, they may run away, deny the loss, or avoid talking or thinking about it. Or they may freeze, they may faint, or go numb, mute, or just shut down completely. This initial response is acute, but it eventually resolves. Okay, second, now let's talk about how grief affects the heart organ. Acute grief can stun the heart and result in broken heart syndrome. The intense emotions and the adrenaline from the stress response can cause the heart to physically swell and take an abnormal shape. The heartbeat speeds up, and this can cause physical strain on the heart. Now, for most people going through grief, their heart can handle it. But for people over 65, there's a 21 times greater chance of a heart attack the day after the loss of a spouse. Some of you may have heard that after the horrible tragedy at the Uvalde school, the husband of one of the teachers who was killed there, her husband also died from a heart attack. This may have been caused by broken heart syndrome. Now, this was a really tragic situation, but for most people, these physical changes in the heart, they reverse after the acute grief period has passed. Now, as a side note, it's also interesting to me that intense happiness can also enlarge the heart, but it's a different part of the heart. Okay, now let's talk about crying for a moment before we discuss other physical changes during grief. So how do tears play into the grief process? Are they healing? It's really common for people to cry, to scream, to sob as part of the grieving process. Even other animals like elephants seem to shed tears when they're experiencing grief. There are 3 chemically different types of tears. Basal tears, which are the regular moistening tears that happen throughout the day. There's reflex tears, which happen when there's an irritant, like when you cut an onion. And there's emotional tears. They actually contain protein-based stress hormones, one of which is leucine and enkephalin. And it's related to endorphins, and it's a natural painkiller. So the biochemical composition of tears is actually healthy and healing on a physical level. Okay, so what are some of the other ways that grief impacts the body? Number 4 is decreased pleasure. The physical senses like taste, touch, sight are no longer enjoyable. Food may seem tasteless, and the stress response can lead to number 5, which is loss of appetite and difficulty eating. So the stress response slows digestion and diverts energy to survival responses, and it's very common for the bereaved to lose weight and to struggle to eat after a loss. For other people, the stress response can lead to overeating and weight gain. Number 6, another common symptom is difficulty sleeping and insomnia. Number 7, the stress of grief can also temporarily weaken the immune system, and it's not uncommon to get sick after a loss, but also around anniversaries of the loss. It's like the body is asking the bereaved to address their loss. Headaches and other body aches are also common after loss. And just in general, when grief is overwhelming or the survivor is unable to face or process grief, sometimes that emotional pain shows up in somatic changes, in changes in the body. And this tends to be most common when survivors are suppressing their feelings, when they're masking them or attempting to avoid or distract themselves from the pain. They may feel numb or disconnected from their body. Dr. Hollinger shares the story of a woman whose baby died, and afterward she lost her sense of hearing. Voices sounded muted and indecipherable, and she couldn't hear any sounds normally. But doctors couldn't find anything wrong with her ears. Dr. Hollinger continues in her book. She says she didn't hear fully for as long as she couldn't accept the death of her baby. When she was able to admit that her baby had died, her hearing returned. As she put it, when her hearing came back, her grieving began. The bereaved mother had to detach herself from all sounds because she couldn't bear not to hear the sounds of her baby. Not being able to hear at full capacity was the path that Mrs. M's sorrow took through her body. Now, sometimes survivors don't feel like they're allowed to mourn because they aren't the primary person, like a parent or a spouse, or their culture or their status doesn't allow them to show grief. But suppressing feelings just doesn't work in the long run. So the grief may emerge as a physical symptom, which can also be a distraction from the emotional pain. But when grief is processed, when loss is addressed and acknowledged and accommodated, the brain can gradually make space for the new reality. Grief can become less intense, or rather our ability to move forward grows. Our ability to feel those feelings and continue on with life strengthens. So what do we do about these changes? I'm not going to pretend that grief is some easy thing that can or should be fixed, but there are some things that you can do to help your heart and body work through the suffering. And these include exercise, making sleep a priority, good nutrition, and especially social contact. Be around people. Don't stop doing enriching and pleasurable activities, even if they don't feel good. Over time, you'll be able to enjoy them again.
And I think the bottom line here is that over time, or the key words, what she just said, it's going to take time. I'm one of those people who fell into the category of what she just described as I lost my appetite, especially the day that my dad passed away. I just had no desire to eat. Trouble sleeping. Just this incredibly deep fatigue, like so tired. And I went through the same thing when my mom died, especially. Oh my God, I was knocked off on my feet for, it's kind of funny because planning the funeral keeps you busy and focused and all that kind of stuff. And then, you're going on adrenaline at that point. And I remember after my mother's funeral was over, I crashed. And I was down off my feet for 3 days. I could not stop sleeping. And eventually I had to force myself to get up and get out. I even took a trip to a family island just to get out of the house, to try to, not stay within that environment, because I realized that, this isn't just plain tiredness. This isn't just regular tiredness. This is depression sinking in. This is some serious grief. And so, what is this? Okay. And so I recognize it from that experience that this time around, just so tired all the time, just exhausted. And so I made sure to take my vitamins, because one of the things she talked about is it weakens your immune system when you're going through grief. And I don't want to be walking around here with a weakened immune system as much as I can help it. And so make sure I took my vitamins. And today I did some exercise in the house because exercise, as you probably are aware by now, releases endorphins and it helps you to feel a bit better. And so you have to do whatever you can to try to help yourself process this and get through the grief. Notice I didn't say to get over it, but to get through it. Because I don't think you ever get over it. I think you just, like it was said in the first clip, you learn to grow around it. You learn each day, as each day passes, to cope better so that you get to the point where you can function. And there will be times when a memory will come up, or a particular song will be on the radio, or a particular scent. Who knows what it will be that could trigger you. When you will have, moments of deep emotion. But this is natural and this is normal. And I want you to know that if you are going through the process of grief, it's not abnormal to have these feelings or to have these physical manifestations. This is a normal part of grieving. I need you to understand that. There's nothing wrong with you. This is a normal part of grieving. So we're going to take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we're going to continue to look at physical aspects of how grief impacts the body, the brain, the heart, more. All that on the other side of the break. Stay with us. This is GPS.
At Lee Air, safety is our #1 priority. Flying since 1996, we offer scheduled flights into Fresh Creek and Mangrove Key Andros and Great Harbor Key, Berry Island, twice daily, 7 days a week. Affordable charter services are also available to anywhere in the Bahamas and the Caribbean. Lee Air Charter Services. Call 225-3267, 702-7127, or 322-1317 for reservations.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Youngevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rim fix and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Glasses love.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Youngevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun.
Welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm in your company on this Wellness Wednesday. And today we are talking about the anatomy of grief. The fact that grief is not just all in your head. Grief is not just something that you feel emotionally, but it can impact you and will impact you physically as well. So we're learning today how to deal with that so that you don't end up ill because you have not been able to properly process your grief. The telephone numbers to call: 326-0271, 326-0271, 326-0272, 326-0272, and the WhatsApp line to send us a text message, and text messages only, is 801-0271, 801-0271. So I see quite a few of you here on Facebook sending your condolences. Patrice says, deepest sympathy, my dear. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. Bruce says, my deepest and heartfelt condolences. Claudette says, I know the feeling. I lost my mom, dad, and big brother last year. Things haven't been the same since. Wow. Since my mom, January 25th, my dad on the 7th of October, and my brother on the 12th of October. It is very, very hard. Wow, I would say so. 3 people, my deepest sympathy to you, my dear. And Luann says, Ms. Malcolm, sorry to hear about the passing of your father. Heartfelt condolences. Keep you in thoughts and prayers. I appreciate that. We have a call on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Welcome, Ms. Malcolm.
Uh-huh.
It's been a time since I talked to you, but it's a good day to talk to you.
Okay.
Now, your topic today, which is a good topic, because that's what many of us going through, grief.
Yes.
And anxiety. Now, my daddy, he taking me and say, he's so anxious. But this what I learned. Grief is something that come upon you. It come on you. You will be so happy in the next moment you're in grief. And you wonder, gee, what happened to me? You know what I mean? You know where I learned that from, Miss Malcolm? I learned that from Saul. Saul say, well, he had to find like the King David. You know, they say, bring in a man. Because when grief come on you, when the spirit come, it's a spirit, it come on you. That's what you have to understand. It's not biological. It's not physical. It's none of that. Don't care how good you work. Don't care how much money you got. When it come on you, Well, you gotta find some good music, right?
But it does affect you physically, though. Don't say it's not physical, because that's what I'm talking about on the show today. It does affect you physically.
And which way is physical?
Well, if you keep listening, you'll learn.
Which way? No, I can listen. I can continue to listen, right? But that's what I'm trying to tell you too. It just come on you.
Mm-hmm.
Grief is not biological. It's not even a virus. It's not like sickness. It's none of that. It's something that come on you.
Keep listening, and you will learn how it impacts you physically as well. Okay?
Well, I appreciate your show. No, we love you.
Thank you.
BFM. No, we love you.
Thank you.
Yeah, baby girl. Later.
All right. Thanks for calling. Yeah, this is one of the reasons I decided to do this show, because of that belief that this is not a physical thing. So somebody could be grieving. And if you're not careful, that grief could turn into a depression, which can last a long time. So this is why you have to be able to deal with whatever trauma, whatever loss you're experiencing, so that you don't fall into a deeper depression that could possibly last a long time. But people need to understand that this is not just spiritual, as the gentleman would have said. This is not just emotional. This is not just in your head, but it has some very real physical implications. And it can be very dismissive for people to say, oh, that's all in your head. Snap out of it. You should never say that to somebody who's grieving, because it is affecting them physically. It does have an impact on your physical body as well. And it's not unusual to go through this. So if you are experiencing this, I don't want you to think that something is wrong with you, that, you're the only person going through this, because you're not. This is a normal part of the grieving process. I do not use my word lightly when I say process, because it's a process. It's not something that you just get over. And there's a reason for that, particularly if that person meant something to you, or if that relationship or whatever it is that you would have lost, if that held a significant place in your life, or played a significant role in your life, you're going to feel it. That's just human. And if you don't feel it, either you are suppressing your feelings or denying your feelings because you are not wanting to go through the pain of feeling it, or that relationship or thing wasn't that important to you to begin with. And a lot of people try to suppress their feelings, or go into denial. You heard the clip about the woman who lost her baby and lost her hearing because she couldn't deal with the fact that she wouldn't hear her baby cry. So her body shut her hearing down completely. Your mind is a powerful thing. So, you have to deal with the grief. You have to face it. You have to do the work. You have to work your way through it. Otherwise, it could impact your physical health. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show today. So here now is, I think, clip number 3, in which it goes even deeper into how the grieving process affects us physically, our physical bodies, and more. Let's go to clip number 3.
How grief affects the physical body. Surprising how physical grief can be. Your heart literally aches. A memory comes up that causes your stomach to clench, or a chill to run down your spine. Some nights, your mind races and your heart races along with it. Your body is so electrified with energy that you can barely sleep. Other nights, you're so tired that you fall asleep right away. You wake up in the morning still feeling exhausted and spend most of the day in bed. So what causes these physical symptoms? Research shows that emotional pain activates the same regions of the brain as physical pain. Grief increases inflammation, which can worsen health problems you already have and cause new ones. It batters the immune system, leaving you depleted and vulnerable to infection. The heartbreak of grief can increase blood pressure and the risk of blood clots. Intense grief can alter the heart muscle so much that it causes broken heart syndrome, a form of heart disease with the same symptoms as a heart attack. So, let's discuss a few facts about grief and how it affects us. 1. Normal versus pathological grief. Depression is not a normal part of grief, but a complication of it. Sidney Zizuk, MD, a grief researcher and professor of psychiatry at the University of California, San Diego, says, in normal grief, the sad thoughts and feelings typically occur in waves or bursts followed by periods of respite, as opposed to the more persistent low mood and agony of major depressive disorder, he says. People usually retain self-esteem, a sense of humor, and the capacity to be consoled or distracted from the pain in normal grief, while people who are depressed struggle with feelings of guilt and worthlessness and a limited ability to experience or anticipate any pleasure or joy. Complicated grief differs from both depression and normal grief. M. Catherine Scheer, MD, a professor of psychiatry at Columbia University School of Social Work and director of its Center for Complicated Grief, defines complicated grief as a form of persistent, pervasive grief that does not get better naturally. It happens when some of the natural thoughts, feelings, or behaviors that occur during acute grief gain a foothold and interfere with the ability to accept the reality of the loss. 2. How does avoidance harm your health? Margaret Strobe, PhD, a bereavement researcher and professor of clinical psychology at Utrecht University, says that recent research has shed light on many of the cognitive and emotional processes underlying complications in grieving, particularly rumination. Research also shows that rumination or repetitive negative self-focused thought is actually a way to avoid problems. People who ruminate shift attention away from painful truths by focusing on negative material that is less threatening than the truths they want to avoid. Rumination and other forms of avoidance demand energy and block the natural abilities of the body and the mind to integrate new realities and heal. Research by Strobe and others shows that avoidance behavior makes depression, complicated grief, and the physical health problems that go with them more likely. Efforts to avoid the reality of loss can cause fatigue, weaken your immune system, cause inflammation, and prolong other ailments. 3. How do role adjustments affect your health? When someone close to you dies, your social role changes too. This can affect your sense of meaning and sense of self. Caregivers, especially close family members, face complicated role adjustments. The physical and emotional demands of caregiving can leave them feeling depleted even before a loved one dies. And losing the person they took care of can leave them with a lost sense of purpose. Research shows that during intense caregiving periods, these people not only experience high levels of stress, but they also cannot find the time and energy to look after their own health, says Catherine Borner, PhD, a bereavement researcher and professor of gerontology at the University of Massachusetts in Boston. This, my friends, can result in the emergence of new or the re-emergence of existing dormant health problems after the death of the care recipient. These health issues may or may not be directly related to the caregiver's grief experience, but they are likely related to the life situation that was created through the demands of caregiving. It can be hard to make life work again after a close family member dies. Strobe says the stress of adjusting to changes in life and health during and after a loss can increase vulnerability and reduce adaptive reserves for coping with bereavement. Friends, for many people going through a hard time, reaching out is impossible. If your friend is in grief, reach out to them. Grief researchers emphasize that social support, self-acceptance, and good self-care usually help people get through normal grief. The thing about grief and depression and sorrow is that you can't reach out for. Our advice to most people who are grieving is to lean into it. You only get to grieve your loved one once. Don't spend the whole time trying to distract yourself or push it down. It does go away eventually, and you will miss feeling that connection to that person again. And if you feel like your whole life has fallen apart, that's okay. It probably has. Now you get to decide how to put yourself back together.
Okay, we have a call on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Hello, Michelle. How are you?
I'm as good as can be expected under circumstances.
I understand. Condolences to you and your family.
Thank
You know, it's just amazing. I lost my brother, the last brother. I had two.
Mm-hmm.
The younger one passed in 5 years ago,
Hmm.
and the eldest one, he passed on Thanksgiving morning.
My
You
deepest
know,
sympathy to you as well.
yeah. So it's rough. It's rough. You were the one. The show was able to get me out of the telephone
Hmm.
or whatever, because the record, the tape you played just now, so much of it is true.
Yeah.
Because this is the fourth member of my family that passed in this year.
Mm.
Like two aunts, a very close cousin, and now my brother.
Hmm.
And it's just like it's such a I can't it's indescribable.
Yeah, it's rough.
It's rough, and like I said, I can only say that to pray for each other. We have to continue to pray for one another and try and be there for each other
Hmm.
in this time, because sometimes grief can actually bring out the worst in people in family sometimes.
Yeah.
But we have, because so many people, unless you're going through, because I've been on the road, like, for a couple of days, like the weekend. You see so many at the malls, people are out and about doing their business, and, they're into their own lives. But you have people, joyful and are doing things, and you have some people walking through in the days. We just don't know sometimes what the person sitting next to you,
Yeah.
or a person standing ahead of you in a queue at a bank, or paying a bill.
Because everybody grieves differently,
Yes. But I just wanted to share that with you because I've been keeping, low, because this is a rough one.
Yeah.
So I just want to give you my condolences and your family, and to say that we have to and I'm going to take that to heed. I'm play that back later. That record now to continue to listen in to the show. But thank you so much, and you take care. Okay?
Thank you for calling, and
All right.
and again, my condolences to you and your
Thank you.
family as well.
Mm.
There are some families. I have a client, a new client, who lost 3 of her children during COVID. 3 children gone. I cannot imagine. I don't have kids, but they say one of the greatest pains in life is to lose a child. Um, so imagine losing 3 within a short space of time. She's a strong woman. But 3 of her children were lost to COVID, and since you know, they say COVID has, for the most part, ended. Now we see something else going on. They've even named it sudden adult death syndrome, where people are just dropping down dead all over the place, left, right, and center. And so there's been a lot of death around. There's been a lot of death, either from the pandemic or post-pandemic. Families are going through, and people grieve differently. So you may look at a person who, isn't trying to mask the pain or whatever, and they may be, constantly breaking down or whatever, and you think, oh, this person is not strong. But they may be stronger than the person who is trying to hold it all in and trying to be strong without facing the reality of the pain. Some people don't ever really process the grief, and it has an effect to the degree that they literally lose their minds. You would be surprised to hear the stories of many of the people who are walking the streets today. People that we just drive by, or they come into your window and you screw up your window to avoid that contact, or whatever the case may be. You'd be surprised to know what some of those people endured, the trauma, the loss that some of those people endured, which led to them being where they are, because they never properly processed the trauma. They never properly processed the loss. So my goal here today is to encourage you, if you have experienced some kind of loss, doesn't just be a death. It could be any significant loss in your life that you don't try to not face it. You don't try to suppress it. You don't ignore it. You don't pretend it's not there, because you're only human. You're only human. And we all, as long as you're living, you're going to face some grief in your life. That's just a part of life. But how you come out of that grief really depends on your approach during the grief process. How are you handling it? How are you facing it? Is it something that you are willing to face, to tackle, to deal with? Because if not, you keep that inside of you, it's going to manifest in some ways that you will not be happy with physically. Could affect your health to the degree that you could come down with some serious non-communicable disease, because quite frankly, our bodies were not designed to carry grief. This is why it's important to let the tears flow. Let it out, because our bodies were not designed to carry grief. Our bodies were not designed to carry stress. And this is why when people hold that stuff in, sometimes it ends up in them being physically sick, because your body wasn't designed to keep that in. So understand that it is only human to let it out. And if you feel that, you have to be the strong one in your family or whatever, even if you don't want your family to see it, go in your room and have a good cry. Don't just think that you have to hold that in, because trust me, it's going to come back to bite you in the long run, physically. So this is my goal here today, to help you to understand that you can get through this, and you will get through it. But you have to face it. That's a part of the grieving process. You have to go through the steps. And there are steps we're going to hear more about: the anger, the denial, the guilt, all of that. That's a normal part of grieving. But you got to go through the process. So we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we are going to talk more about grief and some of the things that you're going to learn. You're going to wish somebody had told you a long time ago. This is GPS on a Wellness Wednesday. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
One of the things I love about the Mailboat is their relationship with Bahamas Air. I can earn travel points on my international freight and redeem them when I fly.
For me, online shopping is easy with Mailboat's U.S. addresses and regular freight delivery to Nassau. Plus, I can always prepay customs and freight, and they always notify me when my package arrives.
Yeah, a lot of people think the Mailboat is just for shipping, but they also offer a safe and secure storage facility at affordable rates, all in a central, convenient location.
We also offer passenger service into Freeport multiple times per week with a seating capacity of over 450 persons. With family movies on large screens, one hot meal included, and on-board lounge for snacks and soft drinks. We're the Mailboat. We're bridging people, products, and places.
Your body's immune system is under constant pressure from things like stress, lack of exercise, and toxins in the environment. It's crucial to be proactive and support your immune system with the nutrients it needs to function effectively. But it's often hard to get these nutrients from food alone. Introducing fast-acting Zinc Plus Immune Support by Longevity. Unlike zinc-only supplements, Zinc Plus Immune Support builds on the proven power of zinc and adds complementary nutrients to give your immune system extra support. Vitamin D helps balance the effects of zinc, while our proprietary blend of natural fruit and root extracts provides the extra help your immune system needs to work against daily stressors. And we've included Longevity's exclusive plant-derived minerals to give your body the minerals it needs, but can't get from food alone. And because Zinc Plus Immune Support is delivered in a great-tasting, sugar-free, berry-flavored lozenge, it encourages quicker absorption of all these nutrients into your body. Zinc Plus Immune Support zinc, plus the extra support your body needs to promote a healthy immune system. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for rims, paints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blasted love.
It's gotten harder and harder to get your daily requirement of vital nutrients from food alone. Without additional vitamin and nutrient support, your health and well-being can suffer drastically. That's why Z-Radical was specifically formulated. It combines a blend of antioxidant-rich vitamins, minerals, and botanicals with the protective powers of fucoidan to help fill the gaps from lack of nutrients in your foods. The core of Z-Radical is fucoidan, a naturally occurring polysaccharide that helps stimulate immune reaction, protecting you against inflammation and oxidative stress. We harvest this powerful mineral-rich nutrient from brown seaweed, harvested only from the world's most pristine ocean waters to ensure the purest quality. It's then extracted using cold process technology to ensure maximum levels of bioavailability. Then we add essential vitamins that help to protect your cardiovascular and nervous systems and are crucial for optimal immune and neurological function. Z-Radical also includes a proprietary blend of delicious antioxidant-rich fruits and berries. This great-tasting combination helps your body combat free radical imbalances that can contribute to a variety of degenerative conditions like arthritis and heart disease. Z-Radical. Experience the power of fucoidan with antioxidant-rich berries, 8 essential vitamins, and more to provide you with potent health benefits. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm here. On this Wellness Wednesday, we're talking about the anatomy of grief. The fact that grief is not just spiritual, as somebody said earlier who called in. It's not just in your head. It's not just mental. It's not even just emotional. But it will impact your physical body as well. And this is why it's important that we understand grief and that we process it properly so as not to make ourselves sick as a result of not facing the grief that we are dealing with. The telephone numbers to call 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272, and the WhatsApp line for text messages only is 8010271, 8010271. So, like I would have said, and thank you again to all of you who are offering your condolences. Miss Simonet, I received your envelope, the card. Thank you so much for that kind gesture. And everyone else that has called or sent a message or texted or whatever. My generation is not big on social media. At least I'm not. I notice that a lot of people, as soon as they have a loss, the first thing they do is they go to social media. I haven't felt led to do that. I'm so sorry, but maybe in a couple of days or so, I'll do a social media post. But I wasn't quick to go run to social media with this. But it is something that I notice a lot of people do, and again, everyone has a different way of coping with loss. So I'm not hating on you if that is something that you do. I'm just saying, me personally, I didn't feel moved to do the social media thing. Whatever you have to do to help you to cope, legally, obviously, is what you need to do. You don't need to, a lot of people try to escape grief and end up using something that can create a bigger problem down the road. So, in other words, they self medicate. I don't want to face this, so I'm going to turn to the bottle. So, instead of dealing with the pain, they start drinking or they start using narcotics to try to numb the pain. And that's not a good thing because that creates another problem called addiction. And that, I dare say, is more and worse than if you would have faced pain to begin with from the grief. But a lot of people, are self-medicating, which is why they might be hooked on drugs. And when I say drugs, I'm not just talking about street drugs. You have some people who are taking prescription medications, hooked on drugs, because they're trying to avoid dealing with the pain of loss or trauma. I want to encourage you, if you are facing any kind of loss or trauma, or, to process the grief properly, so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you've created a bigger problem than you would have had you decided to face the grief. With all of the loss that people are experiencing nowadays, because like I said earlier in the show, man, there's been a lot of death, not just from the pandemic itself, but since then. I'm sure if you haven't experienced it, you know somebody who has. And we need to make sure that everyone who is going through this gets the help that they need or the support that they need, because a nation as small as ours can't afford the fallout from mass mental health problems or mass mental health challenges, or for that matter, an increase in physical ill health, because we would not have dealt with the emotional trauma or the loss in our lives. We just can't afford to do that. And so I want to encourage you, if you are not going through this, to be patient with those who are, and to show you some compassion and support for those who are. There's a saying there, but for the grace of God go I. Before Monday, I didn't expect to be in a position where I'd be mourning the loss of my father. And it's kind of funny. I go to church, and every Sunday I'm hearing, pray for this family for the loss of their brother, pray for that family for the loss of their sister, their mother, their this, and the next. Who knew when I was in church on Sunday celebrating that I would have had the same experience on Monday? But death is a part of life. I hate to sound like a pessimist, and that's not my goal here today, but from the moment you're born, you start to die. From the moment you are born, you are each day moving closer and closer to the day that you die. That is the journey of life. So it's a normal part of life. And so we should not look at grieving as something that should be avoided or is not normal. And we should not expect everyone to grieve the way we would grieve, because we're all different. And we have to give people space to be who they are and to grieve in the way that they grieve, but to be there in terms of support and understanding and compassion. So in this next clip, I believe that will be clip number 4. We're going to learn some things that people don't tell you about grief that you probably wish that they would have when you are going through it. Let's go to clip number 4.
Most people know the common 5 to 7 stages of grief: shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, testing, and acceptance. Everyone experiences these stages in entirely different ways. While you're grieving, many people will tell you something along the lines of, "Stay strong," or "It'll get better." While those are predictable and well-intentioned things to say in an attempt to comfort someone, they're not always true. When I was younger, I experienced more than my fair share of grief. And after years of reflection, I've come to understand that there is more to grieving than most people realize. I would like to share with you 5 things about grieving that I desperately wish someone would have shared with me. 1. We grieve for more than the dead. Yes, the death of a human being is the most common source of grief, but it's not the only one. You can experience the whole force of grief for anything important to you. You can grieve the loss of a pet. You can mourn the loss of a sentimental object, the loss of a beloved place, or of any kind of relationship or connection. Nothing has to die in order for you to go into mourning. There can be grief for a friendship that has just drifted apart, or for the ending of your favorite book series, a home that you've had to move away from. You can grieve for yourself. When you grow and change as a person, pieces can be left behind. Old bits of a personality and mannerisms that we can ache for all the same. Whenever something is lost, no matter what, no matter why, and it causes pain in its absence, that is grief. 2. Just stay strong typically goes hand in hand with the denial phase of grief. It's when you're told that despite all the terrible things happening to you, you must stay strong and overcome it. What is not said is that just stay strong should mean when you're done properly grieving, you will still be alive. This will not kill you. You are stronger than your tragedy. Instead of pretend like nothing's wrong, don't let your tragedy affect you. Just keep living regardless. Denial is usually said to be the first or second stage of grief. If you find yourself stuck there, you will never eventually get to acceptance, and you will never really be out of your cycle of grief. It's okay to not be strong. That's what people should tell you when you're beginning to grieve. It's all right to cry, to scream, to take time away. It's understandable to feel weak for a bit, so long as you learn to let that weakness go. You do not have to stay strong. If you do, moving on may become difficult. Weakness and vulnerability is part of the grieving process, and it should be accepted. 3. There should be a guilt phase of grief. Often when we lose something, those of us that are still here feel a sense of guilt. Some people feel left behind. Some feel survivor's guilt, in which they believe they should also be gone, or should have died in the other's place. Some simply regret what they missed out on before the end. They regret something they said or did, or the lack thereof. We find a way to place the blame on ourselves, find a way to make circumstances our fault, even when it's not. Facing death often precedes a reevaluation of life. It's only natural that we question things in our time of grief. It's normal to find regrets. You're always going to feel like you could have done something. You're not weird or unhealthy to feel a sense of guilt, but you need to learn to let it go eventually. There's nothing to gain from holding on to it. Instead, turn that guilt into nutriment for what is still alive. Learn from your regrets and use them as a guide to ensure that you live the life you have to the fullest. 4. Time means little to the act of grieving. It does not heal all wounds, but merely smooths them over, making it easier to forget their presence. It'll get better is nice, though not necessarily true. And that's okay. There are some things that'll never really go away. Some scars never fade, but that's a fact of life and part of you. It's normal to still be haunted by things that happened long ago, to still grieve years later. Do not be down on yourself for being emotionally caught up in the past sometimes. You can't just ignore trauma and tragedy and hope that it'll go away. Nothing fixes itself. To heal requires treatment, whether that be through outside assistance or internal reflection. Acceptance will not just roll around to you. You have to get there yourself. 5. Acceptance is more complicated than just admitting to a loss. Acceptance is not a finish line. There is no real finish line with grieving, because grief is not a marathon. Rather than a straight shot to the end, it's a winding and confusing maze. Nor is it a one-and-done thing. More than likely, you will find yourself going through the cycle of grief several times throughout your life, and chances are you will grieve the same thing more than once. You can regress, and that's perfectly okay. You could be done with grieving for years when suddenly something triggers you and you have to go through it all over again. This usually happens if you did not let yourself grieve properly the first time, but it can still happen to those that have had the proper closure. We're never really done with grieving. We will grieve for as long as we live. The cycle of grief goes hand in hand with the cycle of life, but that is nothing to be afraid of. In order to accept our losses, we must accept the cycle of grief for all that it is.
Let me tell you, I could relate to so much of what that clip spoke about. And my hope today is that for those of you out there who are grieving, that you will take away from this show the understanding that that's a normal part of the process of grief. Everything that she talked about in that clip, I mean, sometimes feelings of guilt, sometimes feelings of, wow, I could have done more, I should have done more, I should have, it's all a part of it. It's all a part of it. And like she said, you have to, especially for persons who were the main caregiver for the person who's passed on. You especially have to be so aware of these various feelings and how to process those feelings, because I think for caregivers especially, it can be very, very difficult. And when especially if a person has been sick for a long time, you put so much of your energy and attention into caring for that person, and when the person is gone, it's like this, everything that you would have not been allowed to focus on comes all on you all at once, and you crash because of the weight of what you were carrying, even though some would say, but that weight has perhaps been lifted. It's like everything comes crashing on you all at once, crashing down on you all at once. So you especially have to take good care of yourself. You especially, those of you who are caring for loved ones who may be terminally ill or have been ill for a long time, you have to take some time to care for yourself as well, so that you can better care for that person, with the understanding that once that person does pass on, it's something that you're going to have to deal with, I think, in a different way than someone who is not a caregiver, who just lost a loved one. Caregivers especially, I think, need that care and that love and that attention. I hope that you're getting out of this show today what I am intending to deliver. Because far too many of us suffer in silence because we think we will be perceived as weak if we admit that, this is rough, this is hard. Too many of us are suffering in silence and thinking that, we don't have an outlet, that nobody is going to be there for us, or we can't tell anybody what we're actually going through. And that's not healthy at all. Not healthy mentally, not healthy physically. So if it means on a rough day calling a friend and saying, listen, man, I just need somebody to talk to today. If it means finding some kind of support group. If it means turning on the television just to find a comedy to laugh, because laughter really is good medicine for the body and the soul. And sometimes you just need to give yourself permission to enjoy something again. I remember one of the things that I learned from the late Pastor Miles Monroe. He said that whenever he would counsel people who would have had a loss in their life, he would encourage them to go to sleep, go to bed, and let the next day come. Because when you're grieving, especially a sudden loss, you need the day of that loss to end so that you can see that there is a new day, another day ahead. The sun will come out again. So you need that the darkness of that particular day, you need that day to end so that you can start afresh again. And so, I just want to encourage you guys out there who are going through this to know that the sun will come out again. The sun will come out again. It may be dark now, but trust the process to know that the sun will come out again. And don't allow the loss to destroy you, but allow it to do, there's purpose in everything. And I believe that a part of the grieving process is that we should come out stronger. And I know that doesn't sound like it makes sense. Like, how can grieving a loss make you stronger? But if you really think about it, something becomes stronger once it is tested, once it goes through facing some kind of difficulty, it emerges on the other side of that stronger. And I believe that apart from the natural aspect of grieving, that we are supposed to emerge from it stronger rather than weaker. But that means properly processing the grief. And I dare say that a major reason why many of us come out of grief weaker than when we went in is because we fail to properly process the grief. So during the show today, we're going to talk about what it looks like when you don't process your grief properly. We are going to go there. The telephone numbers to call in the meantime, 3260271, 3260271, or 3260272. 3260272 are the numbers to call. And the WhatsApp line, if you would like to send a text message, text messages only, 801-0271, 801-0271. If you are going through the grieving process, there's some things that you need to know how to do to help you better get through it. And we're going to talk about that in the last half hour of the show. Let's see. In the meantime, we have a couple of comments. Claudette says, I said it myself. I should have done things this way or that way. It's been a year and it still feels like yesterday. Listen, man, my mother died in 2009 and I still feel guilty sometimes, like I didn't do enough. 2009, she died. And there's some days when I'm thinking back and I think, boy, I wish I had done this, or I wish I had, One good thing, though, I have to say that I'm grateful for, both with my mother and my father, is that I had an opportunity to have to express to them both how I felt about them. It's ironic that with my dad, it was just several months ago that he and I had that conversation. And I'm so grateful that I decided to have that conversation with him, because had that conversation never happened, I think I would have been completely torn up right now. I would have not been able to have the kind of closure that I have right now had my father and I not had that conversation. I want to encourage you out there to not sweat the small stuff. Right now, we have family members all over the place not speaking to each other for trivial foolishness. Tomorrow's not promised, people. And you're going to regret it if that person dies suddenly or, something happens and you wouldn't have had a chance to really express how you feel about that person or whatever. We have a call on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Hello, good afternoon, Miss Malcolm. How are you?
I'm okay. How you doing?
I have my sympathy, ma'am.
Thank you.
Loss. And I was listening to you, and grief is a serious thing, and you have to handle it in a certain way. But you have to go through the process, like you said. One of the things that helped me, I actually went to grief counseling with the good old Dr. Rayville Thompson when he was alive, and it was a book that helped me through it. I can't remember the book right off, but it did help me. And one of the things, my sister died, and she died suddenly, and she was my baby sister, and it devastated me and my family, and it's only two of us, and I never got to say, because she was so young. We were both young and vibrant, and so nobody expected it.
Right.
And some of the things and the plans that we had and all the things that we wanted to share and to do together as sisters, just came to complete halt. And so one of the things he said, whatever it is that you want to share with her or wanted to say or whatever, you can write it in a letter. And so, as the time, I kept a little journal. And I wrote down certain things. I wrote down memories that we had together. And I wrote down things. And then I went to the gravesite I think it was about 6-7 months later. And I read the letter to her. And I know that isn't, that sounds, because it was still quite painful for me. And it was still like, well, she's not here in it. But there was some kind of relief in it.
Yes, for sure.
Because I was able to share my feelings and to this day, I still write. And it's now this December 18th is going to be, I think, 15 years that she's gone.
Wow.
And I still kind of visit and I still write down certain little things. And I recall the memories and I write down the things just to remember her spirit, And so I just wanted to, share that with you and your guests because, everybody handles it in a different way. But like you said, you have to go through the process.
Yeah, for sure.
And it does get easier. You still love and you still miss that person. But, like you said, God has a way of, giving you comfort and bringing different things and looking at things from different perspectives and to still honor and cherish the memory of that loved one.
Yes, for sure.
So you just be comforted at this time and may God continue to bring you and your family peace.
Thank you so much. And listen, thank you for sharing your story.
Yes,
I am sure that has helped many people who would find themselves in a position where they didn't get to say what they wanted to say. And that's a really good technique that you were taught. And I want to say thank you for sharing.
And I'm going to send the book. I'm going to find the book. I can't remember what it is, but it does help. And it does help you move through the process. You're not going to get through it quickly, but it helps you to kind of, live in the move through the process and actually kind of say, you know what, because your loved one wants you to move on.
Absolutely.
That's the fact.
Yeah.
They don't want you to stay stagnant in one position. They always want you to move on.
Right.
So you have a good day, Mom.
Thank you so much for calling and
You're
sharing
welcome.
your story. I really appreciate that. All right, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, signs that you have not processed the grief properly and what you can do to help you to get through it. You want to check to see if that's a call for the show before we go? The numbers to call 3260271. 3260271, 3260272. There's a caller. All right. Before we go to the break, let's take the caller because otherwise they'll be waiting for several minutes. Caller, welcome to the show.
Hi, good afternoon. And I do extend my condolences to you on your loss.
Thank you.
But I think I was just listening to the previous caller, and I too, of course, experienced extreme grief when my mother passed away. And that she died in 2013, and the loss was immense. My mother was my, what they say these days, ride or die. She was my absolute best friend. And I lost her due to an illness, some complications from an illness. We lost her, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just paralyzed with grief. I cried so much when she was sick. I didn't cry when she died.
Mm.
And the crying came after we buried her because I was running on adrenaline, preparing the funeral and all of that. And once we put her down, I felt a sense of relief when she passed away because she was having pain and discomfort. But when I felt the loss, it was heavy.
Trust me, I get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's heavy. But the what I did to get through it, like the previous guest, I actually I had a book, and the name of the book was Through a Season of Grief. That was the name of the book, and it talked about all of the stages of grief that you would go through, and and I was like, no way, I'm not going to go through this. And you go through every single stage of grief.
You do.
And I also journaled. I kept a book, and whenever I got feeling really, really down and out and just really sad, I would write in my journal, and it helped. It's very catharticizing to do that, and I still do every now and then. But it's in the form of poetry these days. I write a lot of poems. I'm doing a manuscript of a book that I'm working on, about my mom, and writing has truly, truly helped me, in the healing process, and we still miss her terribly. But I know the journaling helps, the writing helps, just the support, of family really, really helps. But that book, I don't know if that's the book that she was referring to, but the name of the book was Through a Season of Grief. And I actually bought it on Amazon, and I think I may have loaned it out, but it really, really helped. It's a wonderful book. And perhaps, you can look at getting that because it will help tremendously. Thanks a lot, and I'm going to continue to listen, but may God comfort you at this time.
Thank you so much for calling.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're going to take this break now. When we come back, what are the signs that perhaps you didn't grieve quite properly? There are some symptoms. We're going to talk about that as well as some of the things you can do to help yourself through this process. Stay with us. This is GPS this Wednesday. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
For all your building needs, it's Carib Construction and Project Management on Gladstone Road. We build it all: schools, homes, hotels, and more, including structures requiring a Phase 3 electrical contractor. We also provide project management services. The first step towards your dream building begins at Carib Construction and Project Management. Call us at 376-1556 or 341-4466.
Blood sugar levels play a key role in your appetite, weight gain, and overall health. When you have a blood sugar spike, you can feel confused, dizzy, and even have increased cravings. Eating carbohydrates, sugary or fatty foods, and not exercising can all cause blood sugar spikes. But now you have help in managing blood sugar levels. Sweeties by Youngevity was designed to help support healthy blood sugar levels so you can power through your day. It's a synergistic blend of minerals, herbs, and nutrients that have been proven to support healthy blood sugar levels. Sweeties includes chromium, an essential trace mineral that's known for its contribution to healthy blood sugar levels and improved metabolism of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Cinnamon bark has been included for its naturally occurring antioxidants and support of a healthy heart. And we've even added gymnema. It's been used in Ayurveda for centuries to help promote healthy blood sugar. All the ingredients in Sweeties work together to give the best support available for blood sugar control. Sweeties, the blood sugar support supplement from Youngevity. that helps control cravings and manage blood sugar levels through your day. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rims, paints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
As you age, factors like health, weight, diet, and lifestyle can all impact your bones, joints, and general mobility. Even everyday exercise can lead to wear and tear on your body. Over time, you might start to experience stiffness or pain due to damaged joints or connective tissue. Ultimate Glucogel by Youngevity was created to help you limit the effects of wear on your joints. It delivers a daily dose of collagen-rich gelatin your body needs for joint elasticity and maintenance. Ultimate Glucogel contains a 1-to-1 ratio of gelatin and glucosamine sulfate, which is a key building block of your bone matrix, cartilage, ligaments, tendons, and connective tissue. Gelatin's unique blend of amino acids not only help with muscle and joint health, but also has been shown to provide additional benefits for the brain, skin, and hair. Ultimate Glucogel. Natural, optimal daily support for joint health. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
And we are back. Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm here on this Wellness Wednesday. We are talking about the anatomy of grief because, yes, people, it's not just in your head. It's not just emotional, but it will literally impact you physically as well. Did you know that people literally die from a broken heart? They talked about it in one of the clips earlier, where it could affect your heart. You ever seen a case where a couple that's been married for a very, very long time and one of them dies and then the next one dies within days, some cases hours, died from a broken heart? It's a very real thing. So there are definitely physical implications to you processing the grief properly. And there is a way to know if you're not. So here now are the signs and symptoms of what can happen if you do not process the grief properly. Let's go to that last clip.
Now, recently I partnered with Sarah Engler, LCSW, to create a course called Understanding Grief and Loss. And she teaches how loss can stem from a loved one dying, but it can also come from many more situations, like a divorce or an expectation that doesn't happen, a lifestyle change like aging or a change in employment, and so many more situations where you may experience strong emotions about losing something that you care about. Now, in this course, Sarah does a great job explaining how not dealing with your loss can lead to these 7 signs. So, number 1 is compulsive behaviors. This can look like over or under eating, excessive spending, addiction to distraction, like endless Netflix binges and social media scrolling, and of course, substance abuse. Okay, the second sign is withdrawal from relationships. You might avoid people because you don't want to be asked, how are you doing? Or maybe you don't want to be around people if you're feeling down or you may cry. Whatever the reason, you start to pull away from people. Okay, number 3 is overfunctioning. Sarah explains how if you have 2 children whose parent dies, and one of them is tearful and emotional and struggling in school, and the other one seems fine, she's taking care of everyone else, she seems cheery and like she's adapting well, the one you should be worried about is the second child. Some people avoid their grief by pretending that everything's fine, or they immerse themselves in work, just, keeping themselves busy to distract themselves. Okay, number 4 is irritability. This looks like conflict in relationships sometimes. Things like drama and fighting can be a great distraction from internal pain, or it just can be a twisted expression of that pain. So just think of like some adult siblings who are mourning the loss of their beloved parents. If their pain seems unbearable, it may be more comfortable to fight over the inheritance than to sit with that pain. Okay, next is persistent sleep issues. So it's really common to have difficulty sleeping and eating right after a big loss. And again, there's no time limit, but if these problems persist without being addressed, it's a sign that you're not dealing with loss. Okay, next is physical symptoms emerge. So sometimes the body keeps the score. When emotional pain isn't addressed, that pain can show up in illnesses, digestive issues, muscle tension, headaches, high blood pressure, and other physical symptoms. And lastly, mental health symptoms worsen. So grief is not a mental illness. Mourning is not a mental illness. It's okay to feel sad and to struggle and to not function normally after a loss. But when we don't get the support we need, or when we don't take care of ourselves or address our grief, then that can drop people out of a normal grief process into depression, suicidality, anxiety, or other mental health conditions. Now, like I said before, there is no timeline for this stuff. There's no simple, magical process that you can just work through that will magically make your grief go away. The difference between people who start to heal and those who avoid their grief is, do you lean in or do you lean out? So when big emotions come up, do you desperately seek to avoid, numb, suppress, or distract? Or do you face them, even if in little doses? So that doesn't mean that you have to just drown in your grief. There's 3 skills we'll borrow from Peter Levine. He's the founder of Somatic Experiencing, that you can use to start dealing with your grief. Pendulation, resourcing, and titration. So pendulation is when you lean into the emotions, you swing into them, you let yourself feel them, and then you can swing out too, to ground yourself, to get comfort, to take a break and rest. So some distraction is okay as long as you face your pain in regular tiny doses with as much support and resources as possible. So a healthy nervous system can do both, right? It can swing in and feel, and then it can swing out and rest, right? Where an avoidant nervous system just clenches more tightly to avoidance, right? It's like, oh, I gotta stay over here and never feel anything. So as we move into and out of our emotions, we eventually integrate those experiences and our capability to handle them. So you may take some time to face your intense grief, to ugly cry, to scream, yell, shake, sob. And then you take some time to wrap up in a blanket and curl up with your spouse or your dog and watch some funny internet videos before you fall asleep, right? It doesn't mean that to process grief, you have to be sad all the time or let your emotions run your life. Pendulation means that you can just address them in these small chunks and then swing back out, right? Okay, the second skill is resourcing. So this is adding support to yourself while you face your pain. So instead of avoiding thinking about your loss or avoiding visiting the grave, you consider bringing someone with you to support you while you visit the grave. Or after you have a hard anniversary, maybe you find something that's really soothing for your body, like a hot bath or a massage or an exercise that feels good. So we're just adding resources to help strengthen you as you face, this painful experience. Now, the third skill is titration, and that just means doing things in small doses. So, for example, if you need to work through some old memories or papers, set yourself a time limit to face your pain, and then take a break and come back to it after a rest. So you can just try to face your pain in small doses. Now, I know this isn't always possible, but it's one thing you can add to your toolkit. Sending all of my love to those of you out there who have experienced a loss, and I hope this helps in some small way.
Really, really good advice there. Really good advice. I really hope that you guys were paying close attention to what was said in that clip. Because I really think that it could help you to get through the grief that you're experiencing. Another thing that that will help you to get through this experience is be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. What do I mean by that? You will always treat other people with compassion who are going through. You reach out to them, you say, please have my sympathy. Is there anything I can do for you? And you go out of your way to try to show them love and support and all this kind of stuff. But when it comes to yourself, a lot of people don't show themselves the kind of patience and compassion that you would offer to somebody else. So give yourself the same amount of compassion, self-care, patience, love, etc., that you would give to someone else who is grieving. Because you are deserving of it. So give it to yourself the same way you would be patient with someone else. Be patient with yourself. Understand that this is a process. It's not a sprint. This is a long process. And you need to give yourself sufficient space to go through it. The next thing you need to do is you need to understand that it came to pass. It didn't come to stay forever. The darkness came to pass. It is natural to feel it, to go through it. But every day will not be this heavy. And when you're going through grief, sometimes it's hard to see that. Sometimes it's hard to feel that. Let me tell you, when my mother died, my mother was sick for 10 years. And when she died, for a very, very long time, for months, every time I thought of her, I could only see her suffering. It took months for me to have a good memory. I just thought, what is wrong with you? Why is it that every time you think of her, you only see the pain and suffering? And it wasn't until much later on I understood that that was not abnormal. And talking to another friend who years later lost her mother and was going through the same thing, and I was able to tell her, my dear, there's nothing wrong with you. That is not abnormal. But the good memories will come again. And eventually they did. And now I can think of my mother, and I can think of all the good times we had, because my mother and I were very, very close. And I think of her and I don't see the suffering that just seemed to be so heavy, after she died. I mean, I could, for months, every time I thought of her, I only saw the pain and the suffering that she went through. But be encouraged that it didn't come to stay. It came to pass. This too shall pass. And yeah, there may be times years later where something triggers it and you go through a little grieving again. That is absolutely normal. That's not normal. Find ways to care for yourself. Like the clip said, go get a massage or take a nice long hot bath or listen to some classical music or, go watch a funny movie, something, but do something that will bring you some kind of pleasure. I say that to say that it is not a bad thing for you to feel pleasure again. Don't feel guilty for doing something for yourself that is pleasurable. Because you need to do whatever you need to do to get through this. And you need to understand that that the darkness, the cloud, is not here to stay. Better days will come again. And also, for me at least, I think it's so important that you have a relationship with a higher power. to understand that um, there's a universe out there that is far bigger than you, and we are all a part of it. And there is a creator that loves and cares for you. And as opposed to thinking that you have to go through this alone, lean into that and allow that creator to carry you through this in love. I'm not turning anybody down who says, Michelle, I'm praying for you. I say, thank you very much. I need it. I need you to pray for my strength, the strength of my loved ones, my family, etc. Because you need that relationship to get you through these dark times. And sometimes you're going through it and you feel like you're going through it alone. It reminds me of the poem called Footprints in the Sand, when somebody's going through this difficult time and they're thinking they're going through it alone. And they have this conversation with God and they're like, where were you when I was going through this difficult time? And they're told, look back, you see one set of prints, that's not yours. That was me carrying you through it. So I say that to say that it's important that you tap into that higher power and allow the creator to embrace you with love. And sometimes that embrace comes through the arms of human beings here on earth. So if you are someone who has a relationship with the creator, allow him to use you to be a source of love and compassion to others who are going through their time of grief. It means the world to reach out to say, I'm just calling to let you know I'm thinking about you. Or to show them some compassion, take some fruit or whatever it is. Sometimes they just need a call, or help picking up the kids from school, something. Do whatever you can to show that person support and love, because sometimes you're the arms that the higher power needs to show that person that somebody cares for them. Don't be afraid to allow yourself to be used in such a way, to be an encouragement to someone else going through. Because, child, it's true what they say. Either you're heading towards it, you're in it, or you just came out. But all of us go through difficult times in our lives. You can't escape it. As long as you're living on this side of eternity, you're going to face some difficulty in your life. And you should be willing to be there for others when they're going through their time. Because it's only a matter of time before you go through yours. And you're going to want to have that good love and support from others. So if you too are going through any kind of loss, whether it's the loss of a loved one, the loss of a marriage, the loss of anything important to you, know that this too shall pass, that you will feel love again, that you will have good memories of your lost loved one again. And life goes on. Life goes on, people. Just remember to be patient with yourself and with others. And understand that such is life. And you are not alone as you go through this. And I think if we all did that, and if we all willingly faced the grief, then we would be far better off than we are right now as a nation, because we have far too many people who are suffering mentally, physically, emotionally, because they never process the grief. So again, I thought it was important to do the show today. You know, I remember Oprah saying when she was on television back in the day, when she used to host the show, she said, I never had to go to therapy because I used my show as therapy. She said that whenever she would have on a guest talking about a particular issue, and she'd say, okay, I learned not to do that. Okay, I learned to do this through her show. So her show was her therapy. Well, this show was therapy for me today. Preparing for it was therapeutic. Sharing the information that I uncovered with you was therapeutic. And I'm really hoping that it has helped someone out there as much as it has helped me through this grieving process. So my deepest sympathy to all of you out there who are suffering from any kind of loss. And I pray the strength of the Lord and the comfort of His Spirit will embrace you so that you will know that you are loved, that He cares for you, and that you can make it through. That's my prayer for you today. All right, guys. That's pretty much my time. I want to thank all of you again who have reached out to share expressions of condolence and sympathy. I really do appreciate that. And, you know, anyone who showed any kind of support in any way, thank you so much. It has not gone unnoticed. I appreciate everything that you've done. And on behalf of the Malcolm clan, I want to say thank you so much for anything that you would have done to encourage us as we celebrate the life of one Daniel Malcolm. Thank you so much. And until next time, I'm Michelle Malcolm. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and don't forget to show love, compassion, and forgiveness. Have a great day, all.